3 years ago, I lost everything I had worked for my entire life. My job, my home, my savings, and even my reputation. All destroyed by someone I loved and trusted more than anyone else in the world. But today, I'm here to tell you how I got my revenge, and trust me, it was worth every sleepless night I spent planning it. Let me take you through this journey of betrayal, loss, and ultimately, sweet justice. Hello, my name is Jonathan Blackwood. I'm 35 years old, and I live in Seattle. To understand how devastating my fall was, I need to tell you about the life I had built before everything collapsed. Back in 2019, I was living what most people would consider the American dream. I had graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in software engineering, and after 5 years of grinding at various tech startups, I landed my dream job as a senior software architect at Meridian Technologies, one of Seattle's most prestigious tech companies. The salary was incredible, $180,000 a year, plus bonuses that often pushed my annual income well over $200,000. I had a beautiful 3-bedroom house in the Capitol Hill neighborhood that I had purchased 2 years earlier for $850,000. The house had a stunning view of Elliott Bay, hardwood floors throughout, and a modern kitchen that I had renovated myself. Every morning, I would wake up, make my coffee, and look out at the water thinking about how grateful I was for the life I had built. But the most important part of my life wasn't my career or my house. It was Victoria Sinclair, the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. Victoria was 32, a marketing executive at a boutique firm downtown, with long auburn hair and green eyes that could light up any room. We had met at a networking event in 2018, and from the moment we started talking, I knew she was different. She was intelligent, ambitious, and had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile. Victoria moved into my house 6 months after we started dating. She said her lease was up and suggested we take the next step in our relationship. I was thrilled. Having her there made the house feel like a real home. Victoria had her own income, around $75,000 a year, but I was happy to cover most of our expenses. I paid the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and our weekend trips to Vancouver and Portland. When Victoria suggested we get a joint bank account to make things easier, I agreed without hesitation. Looking back, that was my first mistake. For 2 years, everything seemed perfect. Victoria was supportive of my career, encouraging me to take on bigger projects at work. She would often say, "Jonathan, you're so talented. You deserve to run your own department." Her belief in me motivated me to work even harder. I was putting in 60-hour weeks, leading critical projects, and building a reputation as one of the most reliable architects at Meridian. My boss, David Harrison, often praised my work publicly and hinted at a promotion to engineering director. Victoria and I talked about marriage frequently. We had looked at rings together, discussed having children, and even started planning a wedding for the summer of 2022. She wanted a big ceremony at the Four Seasons with all our friends and family. The estimated cost was around $60,000, but I didn't mind. I had been saving diligently and had nearly $150,000 in various accounts. I thought I was investing in our future together. But in early 2021, things started to change in ways I didn't immediately recognize. Victoria became more interested in my work projects, asking detailed questions about my clients and the companies Meridian worked with. She would say, "I'm just curious about your day, honey. I want to understand what you do." At the time, I thought it was sweet that she took such interest in my career. I would tell her about the proprietary software we were developing, the client meetings I attended, and even some of the strategic decisions the company was making. Victoria also started having more girls' nights and working late more frequently. When I asked about her social life, she would say, "The marketing world is all about networking, Jonathan. These events are important for my career." I trusted her completely, so I never questioned it. Meanwhile, I was so focused on work and our relationship that I didn't notice the subtle changes in her behavior. How she would step away to take phone calls, or how she had become more secretive about her laptop and phone. The beginning of the end came in March 2021, when I received what I thought was the opportunity of a lifetime. David called me into his office on a Thursday afternoon and offered me the position of engineering director. The role came with a $50,000 salary increase and equity in the company. With excitement in my voice, I said, "David, this is incredible. I won't let you down." That evening, I surprised Victoria with dinner at our favorite restaurant, Canlis, to celebrate the promotion. Victoria seemed thrilled about the news, asking lots of questions about my new responsibilities and access to company information. She said, "Jonathan, this is amazing. You'll have so much influence now." A week later, I officially started my new role, which gave me access to highly confidential client data, upcoming product launches, and strategic partnerships. I was on top of the world, thinking about how Victoria and I could now afford an even bigger wedding and maybe start looking at houses in Bellevue. But my happiness was short-lived. 3 weeks into my new position, David called me into his office with a grim expression. He said, "Jonathan, we need to talk about a serious security breach." My heart started racing as he explained that confidential information about our biggest client, Cascade Financial, had been leaked to their competitor, Pinnacle Corporation. The leaked data included proprietary algorithms, client lists, and strategic plans that had taken our team months to develop. David continued, "The leak has been traced back to your access credentials, Jonathan. Cascade Financial is threatening to terminate their $2.5 million contract and potentially sue us for breach of confidentiality." I felt like the room was spinning as I tried to process what he was saying. With a shaky voice, I said, "David, I swear I didn't leak anything to anyone. My laptop is always secure, and I never discuss work details with anyone outside the company." David looked at me with disappointment and said, "Jonathan, I've known you for 5 years, and I want to believe you, but the evidence is overwhelming. The data was accessed using your credentials from your home IP address at times when you weren't even in the office." At that moment, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. Victoria had been alone in my house many times when I was at work, and she had occasionally used my laptop when hers was being repaired. But before I could fully process this possibility, David delivered the final blow. "I'm sorry, Jonathan, but we have to terminate your employment immediately. Legal is also recommending that we pursue charges for corporate espionage." Security escorted me out of the building that same afternoon, and I was banned from returning to collect my personal belongings. As I sat in my car in the Meridian parking lot, I called Victoria to tell her what had happened. Victoria's reaction was strange. Instead of being shocked or supportive, she seemed almost nervous. She said, "Oh no, Jonathan, that's terrible. Maybe it was just a mistake, and they'll figure it out soon." When I got home, I found Victoria packing a suitcase. She said she was going to stay with her sister for a few days to give me space to figure things out. That was the last time I saw her in person. Over the next week, my life completely unraveled. Meridian's legal team sent me a letter demanding $500,000 in damages and threatening criminal charges. News of the data breach spread through Seattle's tight-knit tech community, and my reputation was destroyed overnight. Recruiters who had previously courted me stopped returning my calls. Former colleagues avoided me at networking events. I was radioactive in the industry I had dedicated my career to. 2 weeks after losing my job, I received another devastating blow. Victoria had emptied our joint bank account, all $127,000 that I had saved over the years. When I called the bank, they said she had made several large withdrawals and wire transfers, all of which were legal since her name was on the account. I tried calling Victoria repeatedly, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I drove to her sister's house, but they claimed she wasn't there. Finally, Victoria agreed to meet me at a coffee shop in Fremont. When I saw her, she looked different, more confident, almost smug. I asked her directly, "Victoria, did you take the money from our account?" She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Jonathan, that money was in a joint account. I had every right to access it." When I pressed her about the timing, she said, "I knew you were going to be unemployed, and I couldn't risk being dragged down with you." But the worst revelation was yet to come. As our conversation continued, Victoria's facade began to crack. She said, "Jonathan, you were always so naive. Did you really think someone like me would stay with someone who was going nowhere?" When I asked what she meant, She smiled coldly and said, "I've been seeing someone else for months. Ryan Caldwell from Pinnacle Corporation. He offered me a position as their marketing director, and all I had to do was provide some information about Meridian's clients." The pieces suddenly fell into place. Victoria had been using my laptop to access confidential files, photographing documents, and feeding information to Pinnacle Corp through Ryan. She had played me for months, pretending to be interested in my work while systematically stealing everything I had worked for. With her voice full of contempt, Victoria said, "Ryan appreciates my intelligence and ambition. He's already making 6 figures more than you ever did, and he just bought a penthouse in Belltown." As I sat there in stunned silence, Victoria delivered her final insult. "Jonathan, you were always too trusting, too boring. Ryan and I are getting married next month, and we're moving to San Francisco where he's been offered a VP position. Thanks for funding my fresh start." She stood up, left $20 on the table, and walked out of my life forever. The months that followed were the darkest of my life. Without income and with legal bills mounting, I couldn't afford my mortgage payments. The bank foreclosed on my house in September 2021, and I had to move into a cramped studio apartment in Georgetown. I was living off credit cards and the small amount of freelance work I could get under the table. Depression hit me hard. Some days I couldn't even get out of bed. But around December 2021, something inside me shifted. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, anger began to fuel me. I realized that Victoria hadn't just stolen my money and destroyed my career. She had stolen my identity, my self-worth, and my faith in other people. She deserved to pay for what she had done, and I was going to make sure she did. I started planning my revenge methodically. First, I needed to gather evidence of what Victoria had done. I still had access to some of our old shared cloud accounts, and I began downloading every photo, document, and communication I could find. I discovered texts between Victoria and Ryan dating back to October 2020, months before she claimed their relationship started. The messages were explicit, both romantically and in terms of their corporate espionage scheme. In one text, Victoria had written, "Jonathan is so clueless. He told me everything about the Cascade project tonight. Ryan, this information is worth millions to your company." Ryan's response was, "Baby, you're brilliant. Once we get what we need, we can be together openly and you'll never have to see him again." I also found email receipts showing that Victoria had transferred money from our joint account to offshore accounts weeks before she officially emptied it. She had been planning her escape for months, systematically draining our shared resources while pretending to plan our wedding. But the evidence I found was just the beginning. I spent months developing a comprehensive plan that would expose Victoria and Ryan's scheme while clearing my own name. I reached out to a private investigator named Jake Morrison, a former police detective who specialized in corporate fraud cases. Jake agreed to work with me for a reduced fee, intrigued by the complexity of the case. Jake's investigation uncovered even more damaging information. Victoria and Ryan's scheme wasn't limited to my situation. They had done this before. Ryan had a history of recruiting inside sources at competing companies, and Victoria had been involved in at least 2 other similar operations. We found bank records showing payments from Pinnacle Corp to Victoria disguised as consulting fees. Meanwhile, I had been quietly rebuilding my life and my reputation. I took on small freelance projects, slowly demonstrating my skills and integrity to former colleagues. I also started attending therapy to deal with the trauma of betrayal, which helped me channel my anger into productive planning rather than destructive brooding. By early 2022, I was ready to execute my revenge. The first step was to approach the FBI with the evidence Jake and I had compiled. Corporate espionage involving interstate commerce is a federal crime, and the amount of money involved made it a serious felony. Special Agent Sarah Chun took on the case and was impressed by the thoroughness of our evidence. The FBI investigation moved quickly once they had our documentation. They obtained warrants for Victoria and Ryan's financial records, phone communications, and computer files. What they found exceeded even my expectations. Victoria and Ryan had stolen intellectual property worth over $10 million from multiple companies over 3 years. In June 2022, both Victoria and Ryan were arrested at their San Francisco penthouse. The media coverage was extensive, with headlines like, "Tech power couple charged in multimillion-dollar espionage scheme," appearing in the Seattle Times, TechCrunch, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Seeing Victoria's mugshot on the front page of the business section was one of the most satisfying moments of my life. But I wasn't done yet. While the criminal case proceeded, I filed a civil lawsuit against Victoria for theft, fraud, and intentional interference with my business relationships. My attorney, Patricia Vance, was confident we could recover not only the money Victoria had stolen, but also additional damages for the destruction of my career. The civil case revealed even more of Victoria's deception. During depositions, it came out that she had been planning to leave me since early 2020, long before she met Ryan. She had been systematically documenting my work and building relationships with multiple competitors, shopping my information to the highest bidder. Ryan wasn't her first corporate lover, he was just the most successful one. Victoria's defense attorney tried to portray her as a victim of Ryan's manipulation, but the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages showed that Victoria had been the primary architect of their schemes, recruiting Ryan rather than the other way around. In one particularly damning message, Victoria had written, "These tech guys are so easy to manipulate. They're desperate for validation from smart women." In October 2022, Victoria pleaded guilty to federal charges of corporate espionage, wire fraud, and conspiracy. She was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $3.2 million in restitution. Ryan received 6 years and was ordered to pay $5.8 million. Pinnacle Corp, facing massive lawsuits and federal investigation, went bankrupt within 6 months. My civil case was settled in December 2022. Victoria was ordered to pay me $1.8 million in damages, though much of her assets had been frozen or seized by federal authorities. More importantly, the settlement included a detailed admission of her crimes, which I used to clear my name with Meridian Technologies and throughout the tech industry. David Harrison, my former boss at Meridian, personally called to apologize and offer me my old position back. The company also agreed to provide positive references and help rehabilitate my professional reputation. By early 2023, I was fielding job offers from multiple companies, including several competitors who had heard about my situation and were impressed by how I had handled it. But the sweetest part of my revenge was yet to come. In March 2023, I accepted a position as CTO at Nexus Digital, a rapidly growing startup that had been founded by former Meridian employees. My salary was $220,000, plus equity that could be worth millions if the company succeeded. More importantly, I was working with people who respected my integrity and talent. Around the same time, I learned through mutual contacts that Victoria's life in prison was not going well. Federal minimum security facilities might sound comfortable, but Victoria had gone from a luxurious lifestyle to sharing a small room with 3 other inmates, working in the prison laundry for 23 cents per hour. Her appeals had been rejected, and she was serving her full sentence. But I wanted her to know that I was not just surviving, I was thriving. In April 2023, I sent Victoria a letter through her attorney. The letter was professional but pointed. "Victoria, I wanted you to know that the investigation you caused has led to some wonderful opportunities. My new position pays significantly more than my old job at Meridian, and I've been featured in several articles about corporate resilience and integrity. The house I lost has been replaced by a beautiful new home in Bellevue with twice the square footage and an even better view. I also wanted to thank you for teaching me some valuable lessons about trust and due diligence. Those lessons have served me well in my new relationships, both personal and professional. I hope your time in federal prison provides you with similar educational opportunities. Best regards, Jonathan Blackwood, CTO, Nexus Digital." I never received a response, but her attorney told me that Victoria had requested additional mental health counseling after receiving my letter. By the summer of 2023, my life had not only recovered but had reached heights I never imagined. Nexus Digital was preparing for a Series B funding round that valued the company at $50 million. My equity stake, if the company continued to grow, could make me a millionaire several times over. I had also found love again with Amanda Torres, a patent attorney I met at a tech conference. Amanda was brilliant, ethical, and had her own successful career, everything Victoria had pretended to be. When I told Amanda about my experience with Victoria, she said, "Jonathan, what happened to you was terrible, but the way you handled it shows incredible character. You could have let it destroy you, but instead you used it to become stronger." In September 2023, Amanda and I got engaged. The ring cost $15,000, more than I could have afforded when I was with Victoria, despite my higher salary back then. The difference was that this time, I was building a partnership with someone who brought her own resources and ambition to the relationship, rather than someone who was planning to drain mine. We're planning a small, intimate wedding for next spring, focused on celebrating with the people who truly matter to us. The guest list includes the colleagues who supported me during my lowest points, the friends who never stopped believing in my innocence, and Amanda's family, who have welcomed me with open arms. As for Victoria, she'll be in federal prison until at least 2026, with no possibility of early release. Even when she gets out, her criminal record will make it nearly impossible for her to work in marketing or any position requiring trust with confidential information. She'll be starting over at 40 with no savings, no career prospects, and a reputation that follows her everywhere. Meanwhile, I'm living in a 4,000 square foot house in Bellevue, driving a Tesla Model S, and planning a European honeymoon with a woman who loves and respects me. Every morning when I wake up and see the sunrise over Lake Washington, I think about how Victoria's betrayal was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. The experience taught me that sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually opportunities in disguise. Victoria thought she was clever, using me to advance her own interests while planning to discard me when I was no longer useful. But her betrayal revealed her true character and saved me from a marriage that would have been built on lies. More importantly, going through that ordeal showed me what I was truly capable of. Instead of accepting defeat, I fought back systematically and strategically. I cleared my name, rebuilt my career, and found genuine love, all while ensuring that Victoria faced consequences for her actions. Today, 3 years after losing everything, I have more than I ever dreamed possible. My net worth is approaching 7 figures. My career is thriving, and I'm engaged to an incredible woman who shares my values. Victoria, meanwhile, is learning that actions have consequences and that karma has a very long memory. Some people might say that I went too far in pursuing Victoria, that I should have just moved on with my life. But I believe that people like Victoria count on their victims being too defeated or too noble to fight back. By refusing to be a silent victim, I not only reclaimed my own life but also prevented her from doing the same thing to someone else. The last I heard, Victoria has been denied parole twice and will serve her full sentence. Ryan is also still in federal prison, and his wife divorced him after discovering his affairs. Pinnacle Corp's bankruptcy eliminated hundreds of jobs and cost investors millions of dollars. The ripple effects of their greed touched many lives, and justice was finally served. As I write this, Amanda and I are planning to buy a vacation home in the San Juan Islands. We're also talking about starting a family in the next few years. Life has given me a second chance, and I'm not taking any of it for granted. Victoria taught me that trust must be earned and verified, but she also showed me that resilience and determination can overcome even the most devastating betrayals. Her attempt to destroy me ultimately made me stronger, more successful, and happier than I had ever been before. What do you think? Was my revenge justified, or should I have just moved on? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and share this story. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.